So you mentioned earlier about you got in touch with Maurice White, and he had kind of pursued you. Is that what you had said before?
Well, it was kind of it's a long story, but it was kind of a magical story. I had been with the Commodores for a couple of years, and I was living in LA and kind of basically sleeping on some guy's floor who was one of the crew guys because I didn't have anywhere to stay. But I was trying to stay out in LA so I could try to hustle my songwriting and producing and whatever else I could get into. Because a lot of times when we weren't touring, I wouldn't, there was nothing to do. So I'm just kind of back to square one. And I ended up calling Maurice's office in West LA. And I lucked up and got his sister on the phone who ran his business. And I ended up going and getting on the bus and taking some tapes down to her office and giving them to her. The next day, I was told the Commodores were recording in the studio in Burton and Silver Lake area, part of LA. And I went up there, and when I got there, there was this burgundy red Porsche sitting in the driveway at another studio that was connected to the one we were in with the Commodores. And I was like, man, it's a bad car. Whose car is that? And somebody said, that's Maurice White's car. He's here producing Barbra Streisand. And I was like, what? So I called his sister at her office and I said, look, I'm at a studio that I guess Maurice is in another building, another part of the building somewhere. And she said, stay right there. And a few minutes later, he came walking out, and that's how we met.
So do you have any idea what was the first thing you said?
Ooh. Pretty much.
After you bowed down and kissed his ring finger, what did you do? What did you say?
I was like, I think I was so honored and yet so starstruck that I could hardly, say anything. But we hit it off really well because we came from the same sort of space. Not. I mean, it was like we were brothers all right off the bat. And I ended up in the studio with him, like, I actually got to rewind because the first. Before I actually met him, it was a couple of days went between that. I actually called his sister and I went down and took the tapes, and then a day later, Maurice called my mother's house because I had put my mother's number on the tapes. I didn't have a phone. There wasn't no cell phone thing back then, and I didn't have a phone other than the guy's house where I was staying at. Maurice called and my mom picked up the phone and he said, this is Maurice White trying to reach Sheldon Reynolds. And she said, I know who you are. I'll find him, don't worry. So she found me. I ended up going to a phone booth and calling him back. So that's where it started. Then the next day after that is when I started the car at the studio. So it was like 3 days in a row where I was just completely Maurice White, city.
And so this is, I think, probably around 1985, 1986, right?
I think it was 86. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was 86.
And was he already working on his solo album at that point, or where was he in that?
He was about to start on it at the time, yeah.
And so you got right in and you started contributing to that, right?
Yeah, I started singing with him, and we actually did a song that didn't make the record, but we did this thing called Collage, which I still have a copy of. It was like a collection of all the big hits from the 60s and 70s that we did an Earth, Wind & Fire twist to it. And it became a publishing nightmare, so we couldn't release it.
Yeah.
There's like 20 different songs in there, so there was like too many publishers were fighting. So we were like, okay, forget it.
How would you describe Maurice White as a person, as a man, as a musician?
He's what I call a true leader. I mean, nobody's perfect and without mistakes and all that, but he was like a true band leader who did it for the love of the music first. Then hopefully the success would come with it, of course. But he loved to make an audience happy and make that band reach out to do something unique. Like if I played if I came in the studio and he said, okay, let me hear a song, and I might go dun, 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 dun. He said, now give me the counter to that. I'd have to sit and think about it because I was like, I had put out what I thought was, you know, my creativity. So I would go dun 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 dun, you know. So so you create the two guitar players sort of back and forth conversation, and inspire you to reach out and to give, because he wouldn't call you for something that you weren't qualified for. He wouldn't put you in that position. He'd call you for what you were, what your talent was. That was his biggest gift, was he knew how to put the right people in the right place.
Was he very talkative, or how did he communicate?